Good day, peeps, and welcome back. My name is PlentyAZach, and today, this is episode 2 of the OBS series that we've been working on. Now, in the last episode, we installed OBS, got OBS set up for the first stream, and got Twitch set up for the first stream. In today's episode, we're going to be focusing on 4 things specifically. Number 1 is how to install plugins to a portable version of OBS, or just in general, how to even install plugins, setting up stream overlays, scene nesting, and this is very important when using your stream overlays. And number 4, the last one I want to touch on is something called, well, Touch Portal, and this is a stream controller. Now, I'm going to be focusing on the free side of it for the first episode here, but going into future episodes, I will be specifically looking at features that are in the paid version. This is basically like a $13 Stream Deck / sort of Leorin board. It's got a bit of both sides to it. I've used it for quite a while, and I love Touch Portal. So this is the one that I would recommend, especially if you're starting out. I wouldn't recommend buying a Stream Deck. If you want to dabble in Leorin board, what I'm using on Touch Portal will be very similar, but I will be using Touch Portal for all the things going forward from here. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start with how to install plugins. Today we're going to be focusing specifically on 2 plugins, StreamFX and Websocket. Websocket is needed to basically control anything that's inside of OBS, and that's actually what Touch Portal will use to control OBS, whereas StreamFX is actually more of a OBS modifier. It adds a bunch of features inside of OBS that doesn't come basically bundled in with the standard release of OBS. If you want to browse plugins, if you go to the OBS project website, inside of there, if you go to resources and then plugins, you'll actually get a huge list of plugins, and you can filter these by, the most downloaded, or when was the last, what was the last thing that was actually submitted as a new plugin. If you look right here, we have StreamFX and we have Websocket, and these are the 2 that we're going to be looking at. So for StreamFX, if you go ahead and click this here, you'll be brought to the page. Now to actually get the installer, you're going to click the GitHub link up here, go over to releases, click on releases, and then scroll all the way down, and you'll see a bunch of different installers. For us specifically, we're going to want to grab the .exe for Windows. So go ahead and click that, and that'll download. Now we're gonna go back and we're gonna go get the OBS WebSocket. So go ahead and click WebSocket. Again, go to GitHub, go to the releases, scroll all the way down, and then find, in this case, we're actually gonna download the zip file on this one here. Okay, so go ahead and click the zip file for this one. Now go to your downloads page or wherever all your downloads go to. Go ahead and unzip the OBS WebSocket. So let's go ahead and install the first one. To install StreamFX, we're gonna need one more thing because this doesn't technically officially support portable versions of OBS. There's a tool called InnoExtract, which is an amazing tool that basically extracts all the information out of a .exe. Now bear with me, this is actually super easy, okay? This is like a 3-step process. Step 1, download Windows binaries, unzip the InnoExtract, go ahead and copy the .exe, go back to your downloads wherever you were originally at and paste it in there. Now mine's gonna go all the way down here because the program was technically made back in like 2020 or last updated in 2020. Now here's the last step you have to do for this. Go ahead and where it says your streamfx.exe, drag that down to your InnoExtract and then release the left click. Once that's done, it just pulled everything out of that installer and put it into a nice little folder here called app. Inside of app, you get your data, your OBS plugins, and then an MSVC helper. For us to install this, go ahead and copy everything that's in here, hit copy, go to your OBS folder. Now, remember, my portable version is called Plenty of Testing for YouTube. Yours might be different, but go inside the first folder and you'll see your bin, config, data, OBS plugins. Go ahead and paste it in right there. And that is now installed. That's all you have to do to actually install this. And it's actually a very similar setup for OBS WebSocket. So let's go ahead and do that one. Now, OBS WebSocket's actually a little bit easier because you don't have to use InnoExtract. Once it's been unzipped, go ahead and go inside the folder, and here you'll see bin, data, and OBS plugins. Go ahead and copy all of that, go to your folder where you have your portable version of OBS and paste it in. Yours shouldn't ask to replace something. I had already had this installed. So for me, I'm just gonna go ahead and replace everything in this repository so it's all fresh and we can both see exactly what this comes out to be. Now that's it. We have all the plugins now installed. Let's go ahead and open up this version of OBS. So now on your first one here, you can see that StreamFX is now here. You might be asking, what did that add? Well, it added a few new encoding options, but it also added a bunch of really interesting source additions and filters that you can use on sources. A really notable one for us is something called a source mirror. What this does is it takes your standard source that's coming in, like for us, we're using this face cam that's right here. So if I use a source mirror, and I'm gonna call this face cam, I'll call it Facecam 2 because I think the other one's already called Facecam. Facecam 2, the source that you want to mirror is the Facecam. And now there's two of me working in, well, perfect unison because it's a direct copy of the original source. Another thing you could add to this as well is if you go ahead and right click on the Facecam 2, which is that source mirror, go to filters. Now you see two of them, you see audio filters and effect filters. We're gonna focus on the effect filters. Inside of here, there's now a new one called blur and 3D transform. And let's look at the 3D transform. Now, when I drag this over here, you can see that this is still the same, but I'm gonna change the camera side here to perspective. This just adds for a little bit of fun stuff that you can use with it. Rotation, now suddenly, I'm a real thick boy. Or you can be the biggest of brains. Now, these are all things that you can play with, and I'll actually show you in a future episode how you can toggle these on or off, or how to have them basically work in unison with a bunch of other stuff. So there's a lot of things you can use that's inside of here that adds all sorts of fun things that you can do for your stream. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our streaming overlays. Now, if you've been following along, you know that in the first one we used Stream Elements, and that's the one I'm going to continue using for at least a little while here as we get everything set up. Now, for overlays, this is where we can actually find some really nice, just clean overlays for free, and it's set up really easily. For this, we're going to go ahead and go to the Streaming Tools and go to the Overlay Gallery. Once inside of the Overlays Gallery, you can see a whole assortment of options in here. Now, word of caution, if you have a lower end PC or just don't want to use a bunch of resources on running an overlay, I would avoid the animated overlays. They tend to be a little bit heavier on your system resource use. So just a word of caution, you can play with both and see what works best for you. But for what we're going to be doing here, I'm going to use a static or non-animated overlay so that we can show everything off. Now let's look at this gray area super theme. This looks kind of interesting. It looks like a relatively clean aesthetic. I'm more of a minimalist myself. Feel free to use any of them that you want in here. Remember when we made a really cheap looking BRB screen? Here's how we can make it a little bit better. I'm going to leave it as the gray area super theme just so we can kind of see what's going on. And I'm going to go ahead and create my overlay. Now I just created a bunch of them in here. So let's go ahead and go to my overlays now. Now inside here, you're gonna see, well, in this case, 6 overlays. One of them was the one that we worked on last time, which was just simply an alerts page and nothing else inside there. So now we have 5 additional ones that we're gonna start working into our stream. So for now, let's go ahead and take a look at the gameplay one, which is this one here. All right, once you're inside here, it's gonna look a little strange because there's a bunch of stuff in here. Some of it is a little bit hidden. I'm also gonna move our toolbox out of the way. There's 2 different type of webcam overlays. You can use like a 16:9 is what this looks like. Yep, a 16:9. Or a 4:3. Now, I don't typically like using a 16:9 or this really wide angle one when I'm in a game, just because of the fact I think it takes up too much of the screen. So I'm gonna go ahead and toggle that off. But if you notice here, there's another one that I can toggle on. So now that that's toggled on, and I can move this wherever I want on the screen. For right now, I'm gonna keep it up here in this upper left-hand corner, just to kind of keep it out of the way of where the majority of the game is gonna be happening. Now let's take a look at what the alerts look like here. So let's hit emulate and do a follower alert. Cool. Cap is now following. Really simple, just drops down from up above. It'll push itself back up here in a second. Perfect, just what we needed it to do. Now let's look here. In the up top right corner, we've got top tips, latest subscriber, top follower. That should probably say latest follower. Let's go ahead and change that then, because I think top follower is kind of a little strange. So let's use latest follower. If you want to change text on something, if you click a particular text layer, it'll actually highlight it in your left-hand side over here. Here we can see it's using this text one. If I toggle it on or off, you can see that the top follower becomes kind of more translucent versus solid. So to edit this, when you have that one selected, go down to settings. In settings, it says top follower. So let's change that to latest. Latest follower. And that's it. Now you can see over here, latest follower was already changed. Down in the bottom left, you can see that we have basically all of the social media handles that you can have here. Feel free to fill these in as you want. For right now, for what we're gonna do, I'm gonna show you how to turn all these off because I'm not gonna put mine in for it here. So to turn something off, if you click on it, you can see down here, bottom part, and it's locked, which means I can't move it. To unlock it, just click the unlock and turn it off. And it's that simple actually. Now I still have to go back through and turn off all the different texts that are in here. So I'm gonna go in and look here. it says social name. So I can just toggle all the visibilities on this. The only other thing that we have to turn off is essentially the icons that are down there. And for here, we can click on each icon and turn them off. Now what we're left with is the top text that'll auto update as you get a subscriber or latest follower. Let's say you're not an affiliate yet and you know you're not gonna have subscribers yet and you wanna change this to something else. What about instead of using subscribers, we used like the latest raid? If you go down to the plus button here and go to labels, you can add a raid, label your latest raid. And now up here in this top left, that's usually where it defaults to. You can see the latest raid and no data. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete the latest raid message because we're gonna actually use what's already up there and just change it a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete all that. And now we just see, name minus amount. What that's saying is that from a raid, it's gonna pull that username's name and then it's gonna do a dash. It's technically a dash, not a minus, math brain. And then the amount. So it'll be like PlentyAZach 22 or like Nortodo 10. Whatever it is, it'll say who it is and then how many people that they raided in with. Now, for right now, because of the fact we haven't had a raid, it says latest raid, no data. This down here, there's another option that says no data text. You can change it so that it shows something different. Maybe if you don't have a raid, you could just call this welcome or something like that, just so it doesn't just show no data. But once you get your first raid, this will always show who the last person was. Now let's go ahead and line this up above here so that it kind of falls into place with it. So I've copied over all the text settings so it matches everything else that's up here. I've positioned it. Now we just have to change latest subscriber to the latest raid. So again, go to the settings and change this from latest subscriber to latest raid or latest raider. Now we essentially have an overlay that's ready to rock and roll for our gaming setup. So go ahead and hit save. And once again, go ahead and copy the URL link, go back to your OBS. Now, remember when we had originally the alerts? We're actually gonna override this alert source. Go ahead and click in there and paste your new link in and click OK. Now you can see that everything matches up in here. We have our little top badge up here with the latest follower, raider welcome, and a tip. But obviously the face cam doesn't line up. So what we can do for that is grab the face cam and slowly work its way over here. But when I need to move the face cam, the camera border doesn't come with it. This is where scene nesting comes into play. So let's go back real quick to Stream Elements. What we're gonna do is go to Layers, go to that 4x3 camera box that we have. Up here, there's a duplicate option. Go ahead and click this and we're gonna choose other overlays. When you're in here, remember when we made our first overlay? We're actually gonna copy it into the first overlay one and go ahead and click submit. And that basically sends that box over there. So go ahead and hit save and hit the back button. Go to the first overlay. And now in here, you can see that we have our original box. Now we have two things. So we have the alert box here and the cam. Go ahead and delete the alert box because we already have that taken care of now with the other overlay. Now this one here is just for this cam border. And I'm gonna make this as big as possible and just kind of centered up on the screen here. The reason for why I'm doing this will become apparent in just a second here. If you ever wanna actually center something up, if you go to the position, size, and style over here, you can actually see where everything is physically positioned and there's a center widget right here, which will put it dead center on your screen for you. Go ahead and click save and go ahead and click copy the overlay URL. This is kind of where the first complicated section of stream overlay setup is gonna happen. In your scenes, you're gonna add a new scene. We're gonna call this scene Camera Nest. Camera Nest is now made. We're inside of this. Go ahead and add a new source. We're gonna add that browser source we just did. I'm gonna call this Camera Overlay. Now that we have Camera Overlay, go ahead and paste your URL in here. Make sure you update your width and height. And now in here, we can see that we have, well, a nice little overlay. I'm gonna make this a little bit easier as well. I'm gonna crop in the sides. So this is where I'm holding Alt, and I'm dragging in the sides and the top and the bottom just to create a nice little easier crop here. And I'm gonna make this even larger. And I'm gonna put it dead center here. So to put it dead center, if I right click on my browser source and I go to transform, in here you can see center vertically and center horizontally or center to screen, which is also Control D. So now we need to add my face into this. I'm gonna go ahead and go up to the gaming scene and I'm actually just gonna simply delete my face from this entirely. Once that's removed, go back to the camera nest. Now in the camera nest scene, this is where we're gonna add our face cam back in. So go ahead and re-add in your face cam using either your video capture device, or again, mine will say NDI because of how I have something set up. Now that we have the face cam and the border in here, these are both independent sources, and I'm actually gonna go ahead and lock the camera overlay just so I don't move it by accident. But what we do wanna do in the sources is move the face cam underneath. This makes it so that the border is actually in front of us here, and it'll block anything else off that's here. Now, again, I'm gonna hold Alt, and I'm gonna drag in those sides a little bit so that I can expand my face cam to fill out the entire border. That looks pretty good to me. Now, let's go back to the gaming scene. Go ahead and add a new source, and we're gonna add a scene. In this scene, we're actually gonna add in the camera nest, and now you are in here as a combined scene. So if I scale this, do you see how everything moves with it? So I have the camera border that scales with the face cam, and if I move it, it all moves in one. Here's an assignment for you. Go ahead and go back into the overlays and remove the other camera border that we had from the gaming scene so that this is the only one that you have now. I've removed mine. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna position my camera up here in this corner. And if I want to get a little bit more specific about how I have it placed, if you right click and go to preview scaling, change it to canvas and not scale the window, hold the space bar, and now you can use your mouse scroll wheel to zoom in and be like, all right, is this right where I want it? Do I want it more in the corner? I'm gonna have it in the corner with just a little bit of space for the game to peek through. And then I can zoom around and take a look at how everything else looks. When you're done with this, make sure that you go back to the scale to window, just so it's a little bit easier. Now we have this being able to move on its own outside of the rest of the overlay that's in here, and this is your first scene nesting. Now, from here, go ahead and work on and start setting up your other overlays. Go ahead and use the same tips we've already done here, which is adding in browser sources into OBS as new scenes, okay? So each one of these are gonna be a new scene. And I'll meet you back here once all those are done, okay? Now that you have all those added in, or hopefully had them added in, we have to do one last thing, which is add our face cam to the chatting one. Now, you can see down here in the scenes, I've named mine, I use the same BRB screen, but I use just chatting, starting soon, stream ending. Let's go to just chatting. And inside here, you can see that there's a big blank square in here for the face cam. This is where we're gonna use the first source mirror. Go ahead and click add a new source, add a source mirror. I'm gonna call this face cam just chat, mostly because I'm trying to label everything so I know what it is. Go ahead and find your face cam, and then that's the source you wanna use, and go ahead and click add. Now, we're really close actually having it in there. Once this is in, go ahead and drag it below the overlay, because remember, you want it so that way you're always underneath it here, and then position it. Now, before you move anything, go ahead and lock the overlay in, so you're moving just your face cam. And that looks pretty good to me. Now inside we can see that we have everything in here. If we go back to the gaming screen, again, it's just black because I don't have any games being captured. But now we're gonna start looking at how to set up Touch Portal to be able to swap between your scenes. So that way, if you're playing a game, you don't have to try and tab out, drag your mouse all the way over, find where it is and click into it and do all that stuff. So let's go ahead and set up Touch Portal. So now we have Touch Portal opened here, but we don't have it connected yet into OBS or anything else. And what this is basically simulating, as a quick rundown, the screen that's right in the center here is essentially your device, tablet, whatever you're using, your phone. I'm just using an iPad that I have. That's basically simulating this. On the side, you have pages, values, events, flows, assets, guides and help, logs. We're only gonna be looking at pages for right now. Up at the top, we have the pages, and then for me, you can see that I have a bunch of them because I do use this literally for everything I have on my computer. But for right now, on the free version, you'll have 2 pages that you can use as a starter, and each one of them can be up to 4x2 or 2x4 in the grid layout. Right now I have 4 buttons across the top, 4 buttons across the bottom. And you can see that over here on the right hand side I have 4x2, or I could set this to 2x4, and I can have them spaced out this way. So it's however you want them to be done. I prefer personally a 4x2 layout. With your OBS WebSocket installed here, what you can do, inside of your OBS, go into your tools, WebSocket server settings, and then take a look at what you have running in here. This should say server port 4444, 4444, 4 fours. It's a mouthful. And the password, you can set this up to be whatever you want it to be. Just know that you'll have to put this into Touch Portal as you go through it. And otherwise, you don't have to touch much of anything. Just click OK here, go back to Touch Portal. Then up in the top, you see this little kind of like plug. Click that and select Connect with OBS. That now should link your OBS and Touch Portal up, and a good way to be able to tell if that's worked is if you click on a new button, it's gonna open up a brand new page here. Over on the left-hand side, you can scroll down to where it says OBS. You can click Set Scene. This is an action. Now in here, it'll come up with a little warning because nothing's selected, but if you click this, you can see here that I have all of the scenes that our OBS already has. So let's set it up so we can basically kind of run through our stream left to right on our touch portal here. So we're gonna have stream starting soon first. Over on the right-hand side with the button text, you're gonna literally write starting soon. And then underneath this is a bunch of options for text. And do you want to use, text shadowing? What size do you want the text to be? Do you want it centered, middle aligned, bottom aligned? Feel free to kind of look at all of these, but you can also even add icons into this if you want to. So if you want to start up a certain program or go to a certain thing, you can actually set icons instead of text. When you have text in the button text here and you have something selected on your press, go ahead and hit save. Now we have starting soon. Here, instead of just recreating this every single time for all of them, if you right click and hit copy button, you can then come over here and paste the button. Go in and change it to just chatting, change the scene selection to just chatting, and click save. Again, you can paste the next one, and then let's make this the gaming one. Now it's the gaming scene. Let's do a BRB screen next. And lastly, we will have our stream ending. And now we've used 6 total buttons to basically control everything in our stream for how we have it set. So on your device, what you're gonna wanna do is just there's a little refresh button in the top right-hand corner. Go ahead and click that, and then make sure that you've navigated essentially to whatever page that's here. It should be the main page that you're on. So if you go back to your OBS, if you click on your starting soon button, everything should transition over to starting soon. Go ahead and hit just chatting. Now we're in a just chatting screen. Hit our gaming scene, and now we're up in our gaming scene. We've got our BRB, and we have our stream ending soon. So now you can control your stream without ever having to do anything else other than simply touching buttons on a phone, on a tablet, or whatever else you have available to control your stream. So that's the 4 additional things we're gonna add to our stream right now. And now we've gone from a very basic, webcam in a corner with an alert box to just a little bit more, right? This is something here that you could have for a month or 2 as you kind of start working on other things and just starting to build up your community. Remember, you don't need to have the most crazy overlays and tons of gear and all this to create an awesome community. Start simple, see if you like it first, and then slowly build your way up. Again, Touch Portal when you buy is $13. That's a hell of a lot better than $100 and something for a Stream Deck. And again, if you don't have $13 to purchase this, I completely understand. You could also go to something called Unported, which works only on Android, as in like having physical buttons you can click. That only works on Android. I will have all this listed down below as different options. A lot of what we do in Touch Portal will mostly translate over to Unported. Just bear in mind that they might not have the same names, but there are a lot of great resources out there for Unported. I'm starting to look in Unported. Thank you, Andy Lippy, but I have a long way to go. That is everything that I wanted to touch on today of just leveling up your stream to just the next level, right? Just every time we do these, we're just gonna slowly build our way up to the next, whatever that ends up being. Feel free to have fun with this too as you're going through it. You don't have to copy exactly what I'm doing every single time. This is just to give you different ideas of what you can do as the next step. And because this is a portable version of OBS, feel free to just copy it, paste another version of it, and then just completely mess around with your own separate OBS install. And that way, if you screw something up, it doesn't matter because you have your backup just waiting there for you. If this video was helpful to you, please leave a like and a comment or interact with it in some way that you would like to. Otherwise, just having you here watching this is fantastic. So thank you very much for being here. If you have any questions, please put them down below. I'll happily get back to them and I will answer every single person's questions regardless of what it is. So just go ahead and put them down there and I'll get to you on it. So I will see you in the next one. Until then, take care everybody. Love ya. Bye.